Welcome to the Cyber Rants Podcast, where we're all about sharing the forbidden secrets and slightly embellished truths of corporate cybersecurity programs. We're ranting, we're raving, and we're telling you the stuff that nobody talks about in their fancy marketing materials, all to help you protect your company from cybersecurity criminals. And now, here are your hosts, Mike Rotondo, Zach Fuller, and Lauro Chavez.
Hello and welcome to the Cyber Rants Podcast. This is your co-host, Zach Fuller, joined by Mike Rotondo and Lauro Chavez. We have a good episode planned for you today, but before we dive into that, let's start off with the news. Mike?
Hey, good morning. I started out with the top 11 headlines instead of the normal 10 today because there was some interesting stuff out there. First, the hackers are actively probing millions of WordPress sites. Again, WordPress issues are expanding, and people are looking for them. Something interesting from the cloud world, multi-cloud environments leaving business at a risk due to the complexity of multiple cloud configurations. It's now seeing increasing risk. So if you think it's just sticking things in the cloud is a good thing and makes everything safe, it ain't. Hey, guess what? Microsoft advises ditching voice, SMS, multi-factor authentication. Apparently that's no longer safe. According to Microsoft, because they know everything about security. Next one, nearly 24 AWS APIs are vulnerable to abuse. This is according to Palo Alto, so be careful with AWS. This is an interesting piece, especially people in the pen test world. Alleged decompiled source code of Cobalt Strike toolkit leaked online. It's at GitHub for Cobalt Strike 4.0. So, maybe save some money. Malware activity spikes 128% using Office document phishing. So be aware. They're using a lot of Office documents with Emotet embedded in it. So ain't good. Microsoft says 3 APTs have targeted 7 COVID-19 vaccine makers. If you don't know what an APT is, Advanced Persistent Threat Organization, we've got people from Russia, North Korea, and China all attacking vaccine manufacturers. Hey, guess what? Microsoft again. Windows Kerberos authentication breaks due to security updates. So that's always good news. That's CVE 2020-17049. Take a look at it. Next thing, cybercrime moves to the cloud to accelerate attacks amid data glut. There's so much data out there. The cyber criminals are now migrating to the cloud. So keep that in mind. This is kind of scary and kind of sad. Healthcare organizations are sitting ducks for attacks and breaches. Biggest problem is it takes up to 118 days to 181 days to fill a cybersecurity position at a healthcare organization, simply because of demand, which is good for those of us in our business. Dozens of ransomware gangs partner with hackers to extort victims. I guess this is called hacker synergy. They are now partnering together to make themselves that much more virulent. And that's it. Lauro, anything on exploits?
I hope I get sometime to say, no, I have nothing this week to report. Unfortunately, that's not the case. And for everybody out there who's got their websites or web presence or running whatever blog that they think they need on WordPress, make sure you get the WordFence web application firewall for that. Works very well. All right, into vulnerabilities. A couple things if you're running Mozilla Firefox or Thunderbird, there's some pretty serious stuff. So check out the 2020-49 series of patches. Get that installed. Apple iOS, the older versions 12.4 and 14 have some security updates. Nothing extremely major, but all good for embedded apps and for the operating systems to get that done. There's certainly a pretty serious one for MongoDB. So if you're out there using MongoDB for REST services, make sure you check the vendor for that NoSQL injection patch. Pretty nasty. And then finally, SaltStack. If you're using SaltStack out there, there's a shell side injection for RCE. So make sure that you get that patched. And that's really it for vulnerabilities this week. Stay vigilant.
All right. Thank you, Mike and Lauro. Today, we're going to talk about something that I'm particularly excited about. This is something that we've come to realize over the last couple of years here, and something that a lot of people in our industry aren't talking about, and that is using cybersecurity as an asset to the company. right? Most people think of it as a sunk cost. They think, oh, we got to, spend budgets on this. I'm talking about those of us outside the field, right? So you go to your average CFO or CEO, COO, they're going to look at this and say, okay, great. I guess we have to do this, but I'm going to drag my feet a little bit, right? I'm going to try to get by with the bare minimum. But companies are starting to realize that cybersecurity really can be used to grow revenue and open new opportunities. It's a business enabler. And one of the examples that we've seen of that was a organization that we helped actually land a $1 million per year revenue contract. And this contract was on the line. It was being bottlenecked in the sales process. This is a B2B tech company, and they would not have landed this contract if they weren't able to leverage us or leverage somebody like us to be able to get the fundamentals in place that they needed in order to meet the security requirements, and more importantly, a long-term plan of action, milestone, something that they could report progress on over time to keep that contract. So it's pretty awesome. And since then, we've been able to help clients just grow. And there's a little bit of a shameless plug here, but I don't mind. It just shows the power of it. We've been able to help our clients of silence sector grow millions in revenue over the last couple of years by getting through the security questionnaires, the sales bottlenecks, the compliance requirements, even things like SOC 2 audits and such, so that they can put security at the forefront of their organization. So I'll pause there. Mike and Laura, feel free to jump in with your comments, but I could go on and on and on for multiple episodes about this topic. So I'm excited about what we're going through today.
Well, sure. Zach, thanks for that. And, I guess kind of talk about maybe one of the strong points that I like to kind of relate this to and how effective this is it's just kind of picture yourself as a CEO. You've just got you've got a pretty good company going, but you're not extremely mature yet. And you get this, big attorney language stuff, maybe it's a lawsuit, whatever. You're not going to try to act on that on your own, are you? You're probably going to hire an attorney to coordinate that type of paperwork and that type of information, that type of inquiry with the asking attorney firm. In the same respect, I think that's what makes a significant difference is when a large organization, right? I mean, like a Apple or Google, right? Not to drop the names, but when we're talking about a large organization and their cybersecurity team, rather their governance compliance team, hits you with a third-party security questionnaire, and you not only are not answering the questions maybe properly, or you're intimidated by those questions. It's the same situation like having an attorney. The security professional is going to be able to digest those questions and respond appropriately and very quickly and thoroughly, and most importantly, accurately to your environment. And it's going to be as two attorneys communicating with one another. We understand the language. The cybersecurity professionals at the firm, requesting firm, are going to understand the language that we're responding to on behalf of the client. And I think that translation, if you want to call it that, right, for lack of a better term, it's Babelfish, right? I think it streamlines the process. I also think that it's important too, because a lot of the questionnaires that you're going to receive are not going to align to the business model that you may be presenting on to that client, right? Unfortunately, I think a lot of the questionnaires are pulled from requirements out of NIST and PCI and things like that, and they're thrown in certain random order inside of a spreadsheet called a third-party questionnaire and sent to the client. Some of them actually follow something like NIST 853 and have corresponding control sets, or even sometimes PCI. But you may receive these questionnaires and look at them and say, wow, how am I supposed to respond? What am I supposed to respond to? And I think, back to what Zach was talking about, I think that is the moment when you realize that you need to reach out to the attorney, right? When you get that paper from that attorney firm, right? And when you get that third-party questionnaire and you're starting to be curious about your answers, I think it's time. I mean, wouldn't you say, Mike?
Yeah, and then the other problem is that they're not standardized, right? I mean, like you were alluding to, is that this company asked this, and B asked this, and they're really trying to ask the same question, but they're asking it differently. And if you're not steeped in cybersecurity verbiage and in the business, you just don't understand it. Although I do take umbrage with being compared to an attorney. They
Fair enough.
But yeah, I mean, it's very much the case. I mean, and there's clients that we're working with currently that are just, looking at these things and they want to say NA to everything because it's like, well, it's not what we do. It's not what we do because they've been sent a boilerplate questionnaire, and then they're afraid they're going to lose a sale or they're going to lose, a client because they can't answer these questions properly. And it just kind of, it causes a lot of hand-wringing where you really need a cybersecurity professional to deal with these kind of issues. And then, the other thing, and I was just talking to someone the other day, and, they do a lot of business with very big clients, and they're a smaller company. And we've been talking about their third-party assessment process. And it was like, well, do you have one of these with, this big company? And they said, well, we asked for them. They basically told us to pound sand. So it kind of goes both ways. It's kind of weird. Like the big companies will ask you for, everything. And, you ask them for anything and the answer is no. So I mean, it's just kind of it's an interesting world out there for that kind of stuff.
It is it is very interesting. And what so I for those listening, I see security questionnaires all the time. I mean, I'm answering sometimes upwards of 20 a week on behalf of clients. That's peak max, but it's still quite hefty, right? When you've got 80 plus, sometimes 200 plus online questionnaires. Some people put them in portals. Some people are sending the Excel file sheets still. And here's what I say, to organizations. What I see is that, just like Mike said, is the big organizations are asking you. They're saying, deliver us all your policies. And some of these companies, when we come on, when we get involved, we find out that they've been sending all of their internal documents, diagrams, every intimate detail they can. They've just been blatantly sending it to this company. And what I'm going to tell you is that just because you work at a Fortune 50 company doesn't make you a smart cybersecurity professional. Okay. There is a such thing as data hoarding. And as Mike said, it goes both ways. Okay. If I'm giving you my data, then I have the right to audit you and assess you and request control, configuration, documents from you, right? And that's just how it goes. Doesn't matter how small or big you are. And so in the questionnaires, what I tell people is that, and this is the advice I give clients, and these is the responses that I give. If we're a consulting firm and we're doing business on behalf of a large organization that needs our consulting, and we're not offering a widget and we don't have a SaaS and there's not any kind of web application involved, it's simply just remote access from a laptop to a third party's web application, right? Say we're doing, some work in, Hooba Dooba Hooba, and they're, like a CRM, right? So we're up in Hooba Dooba Hooba and you're a member of them too. And you're giving us access to your realm, and we're going to come in and do some data aggregation for you. A lot of these questions aren't going to apply. So what I respond to is that in the questions that would directly apply to the Hooba Dooba Dooba CRM company, I say, in the questionnaire that I'm answering on behalf of the big client, say, hey, this is not applicable to us. You can find this data in your security questionnaire that you should have on file for Hooba Dooba Hooba CRM company. And I throw it back in their court and say, hey, look, this is something you should have, and do a better job of understanding what type of business model that your company is starting to bolt on with, and to better understand how you should really kind of tear down and more finitely prescribe your security questionnaire to that organization.
Right.
That's my favorite CRM, by the way. For anybody who hasn't checked it out, it's the best on the market.
Hooba Dooba Hoo.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's proprietary, but
I couldn't drop the name. I'm sorry. I wasn't going to name it. This is my best.
I love it. It's interesting too, because that's when a lot of companies nowadays are reaching out when they have that problem, right? So they primarily, I think what we're seeing is most of the companies in this space that are really having an issue with the security questionnaires are these emerging technology companies. So usually like a B2B tech company, right? And they're going after larger enterprise clients and kind of stepping into the big leagues, and they get hit with this thing. And then all of a sudden the deal's on the line. So our encouragement to all the companies out there is get ahead of this stuff, be in advance. Don't wait till that security questionnaire comes down. And the way you do that is by picking a cybersecurity framework and starting working on the alignment to it, right? Because if you're aligned to a good framework, then all those questions you're going to be able to cover down on much more easily, even though they're never in the same format. There's no kind of standard approach. Although I know there's all these software platforms out there trying to create the one standard security questionnaire. I don't see it happen because every CISO wants to put their mark, their stamp of approval, their methodology on it for their own company. And as the big guys, and you're trying to get their business, they don't really care if you have to go through a different questionnaire every single time, right? It's not in their best interest to make it standardized. So you need to align to a framework and start working on your answers that will that you can use for those questions, even though the formats are going to come out different every single time.
Yeah, and they and here's the thing: is it's like taking a test where they change the questions. They may be similar, but they reword it, and that's kind of how I look at this. But let's talk about real quick. If you get these questionnaires and you can't answer them, like what happens, right? What happens when you have to click NA and all this stuff, right? What happens when you're not really sure and you stall? Well, this, and what happens when you submit this back to the organization? Okay, they have a risk and governance team that's, probably, third party, this or that, assurance or something, and they'll take your answers and they're going to write up a risk report on your company based on the answers on that form. It's basically a light, audit essentially. That risk report is going to go on file and it's going to go to the CISO and it's probably going to go to the board and they're going to see it and they're going to say, hey, they wanted to do business with the CRM, but these guys answered NA on all of these questions. And a smart CISO would say, okay, well, that sucks. It's too bad. Maybe they had a good product, but do we have anybody else in the realm that may be more expensive, but also offers a better security profile for their application platform? That's kind of how their thinking method's going to go. So from you who didn't answer that correctly, that's kind of what they're going to say, right? So depending on the answers that you provide in that questionnaire, and you can't lie because they do have the right, a lot of the language on the contracts are going to allow them to do spot audits within like 30 days of notifying you. Okay, I see that a lot when I'm reviewing that language, and unfortunately, that's just part of it. If you agree to that, or you don't have an attorney look through that and redline it, and put stronger stipulations in there, they're going to have the right to essentially audit you. And the way that happens with the clients that I serve is that typically we do a video Zoom meeting or similar. And it's their cybersecurity team or a subset of that asking me questions about the organization, going through essentially the same checklist that we answer every year, asking to take screenshots. That's where I really like to drive these types of conversations where they want to see evidence, because they need to see that you certainly demonstrate proper security controls in your documentation controls and the things that you're doing. So they're gonna want to come in and audit you. So it's certainly not a good idea to be false. It'd be better to say something like, we don't have that now, but we're going to, implement that in the next 12 months. And so I think, that's probably the better answer.
Right. No, I was just going to agree with you, man. That's actually, most companies will accept that. Yeah, we're working on it,
Yeah. So. But if you flat out, say that you got it and you don't, you're going to get yourself in a lawsuit, unfortunately. And then, if you don't have the controls, don't be scared. It doesn't put you out of the game. A firm like ours, again, we can very quickly assist you to get, in a position where you can answer things on that questionnaire appropriately. However, that's what's happening on the other side. When they don't receive the questionnaire, if you have a one of a kind and there's no one else in the world like you, and you're like the one thing in the entire planet that does this one thing, like hubba CRM, then they may not have a choice. And they say, look, it's hubba, we got to use them. And maybe they'll make an exception for your bad security that you didn't remark on your security questionnaire.
The thing I've seen also is that a lot of the security questionnaires, it'll say, do you have this control in place and please explain? And all you'll respond with is a yes or a no. There needs to be, when they ask you to explain, you need to explain. Even if it's a sentence, even if it's 5 words, you need to fill that out. And that's because one word answers lead to additional questions.
Generally. Always. They'll always come back with an email or request for a meeting on some additional information around the controls that you're trying to be vague about because you probably don't have them.
Right.
So the moral of the story is don't try to be sneaky. Be honest. They will know. They will know. And you got to understand too, the people sending you these security questionnaires they're sending them out all over the place, and they're seeing all kinds of different answers coming in. So they're going to very quickly understand what's real and what's not.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of the story of my father, who does some online college teaching, and he received 3 papers in one day from the same laptop for 3 different people, and they had the audacity to say, "Oh no, we wrote it ourselves." And that kind of fraud is very easy to find fairly easily.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, I mean, before you do something crazy, just, contact us. We'll come help you. It's not going to break the bank, and it's certainly not going to take an aggressive amount of time. You know what I mean? So it's certainly something that can be handled. Again, like, we started this conversation out. We were successful helping that client in getting that deal in under 14 days. Okay. Yeah. From being stalled to under 14 days, we can deliver the type of program and continuous control sets that the organization needs to again say yes to a lot of that. Now, there's something that you're probably not going to be able to do, like SIM, removing all of, I think another big one is removing all admin privileges from everybody, right? Even the admins need to have 2 accounts, a user account and an admin account. And that's usually takes a little bit, right? Especially for organizations who don't have something like Active Directory running in their business yet. There are options out there, lightweight options that work very, very well. But, these things take time and they take budget. And so, it's going to be able to move as fast as you can unfortunately afford to go, and how much of your culture you're willing to wring, I guess is what I'll say, because some cultures are used to having a specific environment. And a lot of these frameworks, when you implement things, change some of the freedoms in the computing, around the computing technologies that some of your employees are going to be used to. So you have to certainly make that cultural change too.
Yeah. I remember when working at a large bank, we were also always called the sale killers, because we, made them adhere to certain things. They couldn't say whatever they wanted to say when we were, copying every email they sent, and, tracking their voicemail and all sorts of fun Big Brother type stuff for SOX, SEC and FINRA, and all sorts of things. So
yeah, well, now it's no longer, now it's sell, it's driver. It's funny how it's completely flopped the other way.
Right.
Now companies are better by spinning to align to a framework to demonstrate the good controls because now they get the one deal that was asking for it, and now all the other deals just come easily. And we have one client that did it way a long time ago, before anybody else was doing this sort of stuff. They said, hey, we want to be secure. We want to have some form of attestation that says we're doing this certain framework, because they wanted to set themselves apart in the market, and it worked, right? I mean, they put themselves light years ahead of their competitors because they're getting the same questionnaires. And I know the competitors are not going to be able to answer the same way, right? Especially considering one of them may be operating out of a garage type environment. You know what I mean? So you just can't, you never know what the technology looks like on the other end. I mean, that's the whole point of the security questionnaires, right? They have to understand how you're modeling your architecture, to offer the services that they want to buy from you.
One of the things too, that just kind of as a caution, is that, you get that questionnaire, whether it's, 2 pages or 15 pages. And there's always that shock and awe factor of, oh my God, can I do this? But most companies that have any kind of framework or any kind of structure in place are generally between 40 and 60% compliant with it already. They just don't realize it, and they see that. We see that with NIST too a lot of times, is that you're already better off than you think you are, but you still need to improve. And those questionnaires will call those things out. But, seeing that and just, letting your eyes glaze over and be scared by it is not a way forward. That's where you need to engage a company like us or somebody else that'll help you, realize where you're at, get you to where you need to be, and teach you how to maintain to be there to continue to drive the sales. But yeah, I mean, just don't just accept that, oh, we don't have any of this, when in reality you might have a lot of it.
Yeah, it's just a matter of translating it to their questionnaires or that framework that you're required to follow. And, as we wrap up, I think, one thing that will help people, especially if you're in the B2B tech space or you're trying to go after DoD type contracts. Put yourself in the customer's shoes, right? And understand that if I'm a buyer of technology that I'm going to use to improve operations for my organization or work with data that's critical to my organization, what am I looking at first, right? If I'm looking at a SaaS platform, for example, well, I'm looking at all the features, the user interface. Will this be a fit to do what we want it to do, right? But everybody has a beautiful user interface these days, cool features. They all sell it, as the best of the best. But so all that stuff kind of starts to blend together when you're in the buyer's shoes. But what's the very next thing they look at after that? After all the features and functionality, you check the blocks, they're looking at the cybersecurity program. Is taking this on going to bring additional risk to our company? And that's the essence of the security questionnaire, right? So if not only on the security questionnaire side, but if you can develop your company's security program to really put security out there front and center, start answering those concerns before it even comes up in the sales discussions, right on the website. Obviously you don't want to put confidential information out there, but you want to put information that adds credibility, that shows that yes, we put security front and center in our organization. It's what our platform or what our company is built on. And then you can show third-party attestations, things like SOC 2 audits, for example, and you can show that success of that. You can speak that language right out there in your marketing efforts. That will absolutely differentiate you, because that's an opportunity that so many companies are not yet taking advantage of. And a few do it very, very well, and they are just killing it out there in the marketplace. But you can turn your organization into a market leader in your space by leveraging cybersecurity. We know that because we've done it. We've helped our clients do it. We see that stuff happening out there, and this is the perfect time to do it. 5-6 years from now, it's going to be more standard, but right now there's still kind of that cutting edge opportunity that you can go after. So thanks for joining us today. Reach out anytime if you have questions about any of this stuff. Pick up the book Cyber Rants on Amazon, and we'll look forward to seeing you on the next episode.
Pick up your copy of the Cyber Rants book on Amazon today. And if you're looking to take your cybersecurity program to the next level, visit us online at www.silentsector.com. Join us next time for another edition of the Cyber Rants podcast.